That is a lot.
This week, it's 3 storm fronts.
But not tomorrow. Okay, good. I have to drive to San Diego tomorrow. Monday, Tuesday. That works for me. So I do have, I did reschedule Choa Sensei from San Diego, but I can't find the date. I think it's in June that he'll be back as a guest since he had to cancel because he was ill a couple weeks ago. So he will return, and I'll reschedule back up as well. All right. Next koan on the list. This is the Gateless Gate, case 19. Ordinary mind is the way.
You do the flagpole?
Flagpole.
Shepherd's flagpole. Oh, you're 19?
Yeah, we're 19.
Well, okay.
Okay.
Ordinary mind is the way.
Okay. Main case. Joshu earnestly asked Nansen, "What is the way?" Nansen answered, "The ordinary mind is the way." Joshu asked, "Should I direct myself toward it or not?" Nansen said, "If you try to turn toward it, you go against it." Joshu asked, "If I do not try to turn toward it, how can I know that it is the way?" Nansen answered, "The way does not belong to knowing or not knowing. Knowing is delusion. Not knowing is a blank consciousness. When you have really reached the true way, beyond all doubt, you will find it as vast and boundless as the great empty firmament. How can it be talked about on the level of right and wrong?" At these words, Joshu was suddenly enlightened. So, we're back to Master Nansen and Master Joshu. Joshu is, Joshu's moo. We talked about at the beginning of this book, and Nansen is Nansen's cat. Those are the two famous koans that we've already talked about. Yes. And these two, probably two of the most famous Zen teachers in China. So this is 8th century, 9th century China at this point. And this koan is deceptively simple. So we'll break it down. But let me read Mumon's commentary. Nansen was asked a question by Joshu, and Nansen's base was shattered and melted away. He could not justify himself. Even though Joshu has come to realization, he will have to delve into it for another 30 years before he can realize it fully. So, which raises another question. What was wrong with Nansen's answer to Joshu's question? The verse, "The spring flowers, the moon in autumn, the cool breezes of summer, the winter's snow. If idle concerns do not cloud the mind, this is man's happiest season." Okay, so are you suddenly enlightened? So unfortunately, or fortunately, there's no way out of enlightenment. Sorry. You're stuck with that aspect of yourself because it is the most natural, ordinary parts of ourselves, is this enlightenment. But so what is this ordinary mind? Two things. What is the ordinary mind that, what is the way that Joshu is asking about? And what is this ordinary mind that Nansen is referring to? The devil's in the details, as they say. So probably Joshu was young, late teens, early 20s, when this takes place. He continued to have other levels of enlightenment for years on end. And there are records of those, and some of them are covered in subsequent koans. So that first inkling, that first view that we all often have when we first start to sit, this feeling of oneness, this bliss and repose that we get to in Zazen, it's kind of a natural place to kind of settle in, and it feels good, and then we want it again. So we keep coming back trying to recreate that. But that is just an initial piece. It's not, it doesn't stop there. There's more to learn, more to realize, more deeper that one can go, which is what all of these teachers did, is they continued to have these enlightened experiences over and over again. Getting, as they peeled away the layers and all of the distractions that keep us from really recognizing and actualizing our very ordinary, our very simple, our very natural selves. And our natural selves, our natural state of being, is this state of equanimity with reality, of enlightenment. We are all quite naturally Buddhas. But we have no end of things that we distract ourselves with, that we concern ourselves with, that we layer on, that we make up about ourselves. So this mind that is, concerned about stuff, that is trying to conjure up ideas about what the way is, what enlightenment is, all of that misses the point. The second morning service, when we do all 4 morning services at Yokoji, is the identity relative and absolute. And there's a line in that sutra that says, if you're looking for the way, you do not see it even as you walk on it. So we do this search, and it's how we all got here. We were looking for something. We weren't satisfied. So there was something more that we thought there was to get, or be, or something else than where we were. We wanted out of what we were suffering from. Usually, Buddhism is often referred to as the religion of last resort. So usually people tried everything else, and they finally end up here. Some people are lucky enough to start here, and they get it from that point of view. But the Buddha went through the same thing. He was completely dissatisfied. I mean, the man was privileged and brilliant, and studied all the religions of his day, and still he wasn't satisfied. So he sat down under that Bodhi tree and did not get up until he figured it out. And all of the possible distractions that could come up for him were his gift during his session of the retreat. I mean, he was offered riches beyond wealth, all the possible virgins he could ever want. The devil Mara was highly active, which is that part of ourselves that completely distracts us and wants us to do anything else except sit there and be comfortable with just sitting there, and just be completely satisfied with just being, and recognize that this moment, just as it is complete and whole and perfect, just as it is. We all want it to be something else. Better, brighter, richer. We've got all kinds of things that we prefer. But this ordinariness, this level of really simple, just being where we are and doing what we're doing, before thought, before we make up stories about it, before we make up something that we want to cover it up with, that's the ordinary mind that Nansen is talking about. Now, Joshu, on the other hand, he's this, 18-year-old, I'll call him a punk. Because, what do 18-year-olds know? What did I know at 18? I thought I knew everything when I was 18. And so he came in thinking he was asking this very deep question, but he was really asking, about a method. What do I need to do? How do I turn toward it? And if I don't turn toward it, how do I know that I've got it? So he's looking for, a set of rules, a set of instructions. You do this A, B, C, and D, and you will accomplish the way, whatever the way is. And Zen has a lot of those ways. We've got, the do in judo is the Tao that comes from. Judo, Chado, Kudo, Kendo, all of those do's that come out of the Japanese art forms are all ways. They're all out of the Zen school. They're all Zen practices, and they're all, methodological in a way, meaning that there is a set way that you learn to do those things. And we have the same thing here. You learn how to do Zazen. You sit down, you fold your legs, you sit straight, and you follow your breath. So we've got that way, if you will. But that's not the answer that Nansen gave Joshu. So he didn't answer Joshu's question, which is why Joshu kept asking. It's like, whoa, what was that? That doesn't answer my question. I need rules. I need something to follow. I need something to do here. And Nansen persisted in his kind of absolute way of doing that, which is, is that a good teaching method? I don't know. It seemed to work in this case, but in most cases, you're trying to meet the student where they are and trying to answer the questions that they're asking and hopefully give them something more at the same time. But Nansen doesn't bother. He basically says, I'm not going to bother you with instructions. He basically said, as you are, your ordinary self, your regular self, just as it is the way. And if you're trying to look for something, if you're trying to know something, know is one of those evils, knowing is one of those evils. And if you're trying to create something else other than the way you are, that's not the way. So when you've really reached the true way, beyond all doubt, and the only thing that gets us to that place, and that place, that when you know something, when you feel something so deeply, there's nothing that can shake you from that foundation. It's completely and absolutely true. And I've run into, there are a lot of, my own family members who have this deep, abiding knowledge that God is real, that God exists, that this whole Jesus Christ, this person. So, when they're telling me this and they're asking and they're wondering why I don't get it, I said, that is wonderful. That is so wonderful that you know that you are absolutely that. They're standing in their truth with that. How does that show up in their everyday life? Is always my next question. What are you doing with it? How are you using that absolute feeling? Are you using it for good, for bringing it, and for bringing people together instead of separating people? In some cases, yes. In some other cases, no. And we see what the result is of both of those results.
I have an interesting story about that.
Yeah.
My stepmother was a devout, born-again Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Decided without my permission to enroll me in Billy Graham Crusades monthly.
Yeah.
Offering.
I'm sure this was when Billy Graham was alive.
No, it lives on.
It lives on.
He doesn't, but anyway, so I got this thing in the mail. I called her up. I'm sure you have any idea how Billy Graham Crusade got my name and address. So thank you to them. So, launched into But what's interesting, my thing about this, and I appreciate it, I know you're doing this for the right reason, but it's not anywhere near what I believe or ever will believe. The interesting article in I did read it because I'm interested. The interesting article was the very thing you're mentioning, where this is the group of devout Christians, and the article was about porn addiction, and it claimed that 2/3 of the regular male attendees and 50% of the clergy were regularly watching porn.
Okay.
So much for.
No, wait a minute, what's regular?
I wish you'd leave me alone and go work with those folks. But that's the problem is, their belief system, it seems to me, allows you to continually do the wrong, wrong is the relative word, but
yeah.
do something that's not aligned with their view of reality. And yet they can redeem themselves simply by going to church on Sunday and asking for forgiveness. And it goes on and on and on and on. And this is the Billy Graham Crusade's own statistics, by the way. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt that there are people who, from any religious point of view, there are people who do good in the world and people who do evil in the world. People will use their beliefs for whatever. It's across the board. And certainly we have the statistics, to find that. And, the Buddhists are no less do the same thing. We're not exempt from being human, because that spectrum of humanity that does the most amazingly wonderful, and we've seen, the communities come together with the fires in Los Angeles. The people got out there and really helped each other, and then we see those same people do absolute evil in the world. This is what human beings are and do, and we are fully human, no matter what we believe. So these are, and there's none of that is excluded from this enlightenment. All of it is, the Buddha did not leave anything out. As far as I know, he's the only, I'll say teacher. I won't say religion or cult. I'll say teacher who explicitly said all beings. Starts out with all beings, not the ones who accept Jesus Christ as their personal savior, not those who are doing that the right way or doing this the right way. It was across the board. His first words out of his mouth, all beings. And that's where we start, is that we are all beings. We are all Buddhas. That is our natural state. And that natural state has the potential to be equally as good as it is evil. And it's only in really embracing that and acknowledging that we are these complete whole human beings that we have any agency with how we use this wonderful ordinary power that we all have. Because if you don't own it, if you other it, you give away your power over it. If someone else is always evil, there's nothing you can do about that. But if I am evil, I have choice about what I can do with my evil. I have choice of what I can do with my good. It's only when we embrace, when we are all truly one, that we stand alone in that truth, that we have agency with it. Without that embracing, we're lost. That's where this othering is, as far as I'm concerned, is the root of all evil. As soon as we separate on any level, that's where we get into trouble. Oh, your phone is echoing.
my point of departure was that hopefully I use this practice to make better choices, which is more in line with reality. And if I don't, if I simply do the same old thing every week and go back and ask forgiveness, to me that's not serving my practice.
Well, but it's part of our practice to atone. So
Not every week for the same thing, hopefully.
well, we all have habit energy, and we all make the same mistakes over and over again. So yeah, asking for forgiveness over and over again. That's what it's about. That's what human beings do. We are patterned, beings. So there's no room. There's no room to find fault. There's no room to judge, because we are that. And the minute you cast aspersions, that's your projection. So once that's out of your mouth, breathe it back in. Put it into your zazen, because it's you. It's not out there. It's not separate. It's not someone else. It's not someplace else. It's right here, right now, all the time. No separation from the good or the evil. And that's what ordinary mind is. This ordinariness is all of that. Without all the stories, excuses, and othering, this oneness, which is inseparable, it's impossible to separate from anything or from anyone or from any way of being, is what this ordinary mind is. This is why this koan is deceptively simple, because we want to think that this means something. We make up the minute you make up what an ordinary mind is, you've just lost it. It doesn't exist in an idea or a concept. It is what just is. And if just what is the wars going on in the world, the airplane crash is being blamed on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or hundreds of people coming together to help people who just lost all their houses and their belongings in fire. It's all one. It is all one. There's no separation between any of those differences that we want to make. We want to make that wrong and this right. And the minute we pick and choose, that's when we create heaven and hell. And it's hard. It is hard. And again, I remember when I think it was the first time I talked about this, all beings, and being so emphatic about it being all beings. Tim, who's the Tenzo at Yokoji, he was probably the most honest person in the room. He goes, "I'm having a problem with this all." And I'm going, right there with you, brother. It is hard. It is hard to say and to really feel, I am Donald J. Trump. That is a difficult thing for me to swallow, to say, to believe, to acknowledge. I am Adolf Hitler. I am Mussolini. And I do know that I am very distantly related to Nicholas II of Russia. I did my DNA. I was like, seriously, that is not an ancestor I need. But yeah. So, and this is who we are. We're not separate from any of these things. This ordinary mind, this being who we are, what we are, and that being all, is ordinary mind. And that's what this is talking about. This is why Nansen didn't waste time with the methods and waste time with, you sit down and you fold your legs and you follow the breath, because that's what Joshi was asking. What's the method? you into ordinary mind is the way. Figure that out. You don't have time to get stuck in methodology and conceptual thoughts. Ordinary mind is the way. And if you're looking for it, if you're trying to find it, if you're trying to call it something or make it something, that's not it. You direct yourself toward it? No. You're already there. It's right there, right where you're sitting, right where you're standing, right where you're being, right where all of us are sitting, standing, being. There's nowhere to go. There's no escape from this ordinary mind. But you have to stop trying to figure it out. You have to stop trying to call it names, make it concepts. Because the minute you do that, you separate. And when you separate, there's the evil. And that not separating, not easy. Not easy. So here we are, living in interesting times again.
Throughout history, aren't they all?
Yeah, aren't they all? Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to, I forget that. Oh, you said because I was watching on YouTube a Tibetan teacher, now I can't remember his name, but he was saying the same thing. He was giving techniques when you're confronted or dealing with a difficult person. For me, it's a family member. He said, just keep on saying, just like me. And I just can't wrap my mind really. I'm like her. But you're saying like I am Donald Trump, but I get it, but it's going to take a lot of practice. I'm starting to see the truth in it, but because this family, I share a lot of characteristics and traits. I mean, she's my mother, but when I really am honest with myself, I am really like my mother. So it's really interesting that you're talking about it. I feel like I'm being bombarded by the universe. I hear it on YouTube, and now I'm hearing it today.
I'm sorry.
But it's a hard concept. It's hard to.
It's very hard.
I don't want to admit to that I'm like my mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, can't we identify with others in terms of the traits and the tendencies and the influences? But we have free will too. We have the ability to choose not to do things, not to be this way, not to try to rule the world. And that separates us. In a sense, we make choices. We have that freedom.
Yeah. If you believe in free will.
Well,
If you accept free will.
Yeah.
And if you limit your
I'd accept
world,
dependent origination, but within dependent origination, you still make choices.
Do you?
Yeah, you do. I think.
but also if you have
I choose to go left or I choose to go right. I mean, I make that choice.
Okay.
As soon as I walk out of here, I make that choice.
I know that I realize that, I agree with both sides of that argument. All things arise out of dependent conditions. And if indeed there is determinism, what you think you chose was already predetermined. Who knows? I prefer to think that I have free will. I like that better. It feels better. But the arguments that it doesn't exist are also quite compelling. And so I want to be that. That's included in my all.
I'm sure it came here this morning.
Did I?
Okay.
Mark, if we can get back to you were saying I don't want to rule the world, but if you shrink that world, I find that I'm in charge of my classroom, and I have some of the tendencies of wanting to rule my little world. It may not be the whole earth, but at times I see myself as a little too strict, and I can have some of the same tendencies in my own little world that I think all of us have this little world that we want to control too.
Yeah, that's where I think the non-othering comes in. But we still But you recognize that, you can back yourself away from that and say, oh, I'm trumping this.
Sometimes,
That's
you gotta get.
going to be the new verb. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, whether you're trumping it or Mussoliniing it or Hitlering it or whatever you're doing, how we all have that energy, we all have that potential. How are you using it? Is the key question.
Exactly, but that requires you to exercise choice, discernment.
Yeah, I get that you're on the free will side of that argument.
Well, I'm just saying, otherwise we're just atoms bumping into each other, meaninglessly, in a predetermined way that just.
That sounds great.
That sounds right to me.
Sounds good.
But if I'm aware now, there was a time in my life when I was widely unaware.
Yeah.
And I think it took a lot of stopping drinking and a lot of self-introspection to start looking at my motives. Whereas there was a time in my life when I was younger that I can see where somebody in power would.
Yeah.
Not everybody is so self-aware. I wasn't for a long time.
But that's I think our challenge as practitioners is to identify and let go of illusion. As the Heart Sutra, I mean it's a constant stripping away of these things. But those are things that we have decided that we want to do. We want to be free of delusion, or to the extent we can be.
We are a small minority. Most people I run into have no desire to do that.
I'm saying we made a choice to be here to chant the Heart Sutra, and hopefully to take it to heart and practice it.
Yeah. Well, according to this very sincere Buddhist priest I spoke to many years ago, you come to Buddhist practice because of your past lives. You sincerely believe that I became a priest because I had been a priest in a past life and I didn't complete that journey. So I think for me it's not about deciding what's right and what's wrong, or what position is right or wrong. It's meeting people where they are, and 8 billion people are going to be in 8 billion different places with what they see, with how they're acting and behaving. And trying to preach to them from on high does not work. So, and the Buddha gave numerous examples of that. I mean, he approached all of the people who eventually followed him from where they were at that particular point. I mean, that's why he had this extreme diverse group of people, and some of them were bizarre. From my point of view, it was like, some of the things they, when a long time ago when we went through the koans and the Denkaroku, the descriptions of some of his followers, the people who had enlightenment, were quite unsavory people, but they nonetheless contributed to the Dharma that we have today. They are the ancestors that got us to where we are. And this lineage stands, in my mind, as an example of all beings, because none of them were the same. None of them came from the same place. None of them, they didn't have anything in common, or very little in common, other than the fact that they were, they met the Buddha. So this, and I think the Buddha was quite serious. I take his words at face value. All. Exclude nothing. Exclude no one. And meet them where they are, as they are, because you are them as they are. When you no longer separate those, that's what the methodology we need, because the methodology is sit down, shut up, and breathe. and just be ordinary. And that lets in all of the other ordinary. I think I don't think there's any other way to do that. Just stop trying to make it into something else, or make people into something that you like, and separate yourself from those you don't like. That we've never had that choice in all of at least recorded history, and probably even longer than that. But we pretend we do. We think that we have these options. There's no escape from this. There's no escape from this oneness, and this oneness is not disturbed by all the differences. The oneness doesn't mean sameness. Oneness is that we are all one. We are all everything and everybody, and trying to be other than that is not ordinary mind. That's the separations. Those are the separations that we make. So sit down, shut up, and stop separating. Just be one with that. That doesn't mean. It also doesn't mean that you're stuck with it. It doesn't mean that you don't do anything about something that's wrong. Because it's only when you embrace what reality is that you then have agency to say, okay, this needs to be different. I need to do what I need to do to change this. That's the call to action that Zazen is. It doesn't mean that you leave it there, because if indeed we do have choice, we have the agency to make those choices. If indeed is predetermined, then it's predetermined that you're going to do what you need to do about those things. And we're all born to those actions that we need to take. We know when people need help, and we know how to help with what we have. Not that I don't have billions of dollars that I can just pay for everything. If I could rebuild all of Altadena, rebuild all of the Pacific Palisades, alleviate everybody's homelessness, yeah, I do it. I don't have that much money, but that doesn't mean that I can't do something. Like there's from where I am, from where I stand, how will I use this practice to do in the world? I won't say do good or do bad, just do in the world.
Do your best.
Yeah. Do the best with what you have.
What I distill from all this is three things: be present, pay attention, and do your best. I mean, that's all there is. It's not trying to be something, but it's a process.
Yeah. And understand that everybody else is doing the same thing. They may just being the best narcissist or the best murderer or the best ruler of the world. So don't other that either, because because the word best tends to raise up, well, I'm doing my best, but they're not. So everybody is doing the same thing. They're doing the best they can with what they've got, with what they know, with how they act, and that may not meet our approval, but we are nonetheless separate. We are nonetheless not separate from what we consider to be their best and our best. So all the best is all together, and it's a little. It sounds a little theoretical, I realize, and somewhat cliche, but I look at it from day-to-day activity. What am I doing when I get up in the morning? What am I doing when I'm out in the world? When I meet cats
first.
Yeah, feed the cats first. When I meet people, how am I all with all the other alls in the world. And if indeed there's free will, I want to be that. I want to, march into hell for a heavenly cause. Song from Madame Lamacha, The Impossible Dream. Good. That's something that needs to be done. Then called to do that. The Bodhisattva Jizo is the only Bodhisattva that can go into hell and come back, because he goes into hell and saves people and brings them back out of hell. The other Bodhisattvas don't seem to have that superpower, but Jizo does. So I appreciate Jizo. And then, of course, Avalokitesvara, Kuan Yin, Bodhisattva of Compassion, 1,000 years and 1,000 times. And she hears, he, depends on which country you're in, she's gender fluid. Here's the cries of the world. Can you imagine hearing all the cries of the world? But that's who we are as well, is this level of compassion. A cry might be just one cry in front of you, but that cry is not separate from all the other cries in the world. And of course, my favorite Bodhisattva, Manjushri, who rides around, on an elephant with his sword, just cutting off delusion. It's like, that's my style. Be done with it. But these are all manifestations. They're all archetypes of what people really do. And those are, if you want to call them saints, saints, if you will. I don't think they were actually real, but certainly they're exemplified in the actions of people all over the world and all throughout time. So here we are, with this same practice, with this same ordinary mind, with this same teaching, with this same all. What are we doing here? What are you doing with this practice? Why are you here? Why are you sitting here? Not that you have to come up with a reason, but what do you do when you get up? Do you leave your practice on the cushion, or does it go with you? All right. Questions, comments? Who's online? Kirk, are you still there? Yes. Any questions, comments?
No questions.
Okay, thanks. Any other final thoughts? Oh, what's next week's? So next week is a man of great strength.
I'm trying to restrain myself here. I don't want to just talk to hear the sound of my own voice.
Okay. I'll listen to the talk. Just hear that.
Okay. Well, what I'm hearing is that I'm seeing a nascent moral, ethical, legal, social, political holocaust in this country.
Yeah.
All the earmarks are there. What happened in the 30s? Language. And what I hear you saying is that's my problem.
We're all in it together.
Hmm?
We're all in it together.
That somehow.
So when
I've stopped using K cups. Okay, so I'm doing my little bit, to the universe.
Yeah.
But it just seems like it's time for a war.
Well,
And that may be my problem too.
Well, we all share in this, in the world as it is. We are all, what I when I use the word responsible, I mean able to respond, literally, not blame. Because there's no one thing that got us where we are today. So we all share in the responsibility, the ability to respond to things as they are. I remember during Trump's first administration, I was like, what happened? I thought we did all this work and that we had stamped out all but what I think we did was what had been done to us. We got marginalized. And so we marginalized in return. And when you marginalize people, you other people, when you cast them into shadow, they get stronger. And when you're given the opportunity, they will come back. And I think that's what happened. We got rid of it, but we didn't take care of it. My radical point of view, I said this, I'm sitting in a meeting, I sat on a committee for diversity, equity, and inclusion at Kaiser Permanente, and I said to this room, after they talked about people having a voice in this room, and I said, where is the voice of the white supremacist? And it would. I got silenced so fast that it made my head spin. I was like, wow, okay, there it is.
I didn't mean to read this whole thing down.
Yeah, well, but that we're seeing the results of what we did. And I think that's what we're not taking responsibility for. We are in that energy got marginalized, and now it's back. It went into shadow, it grew strong, and now it has permission to be itself.
I mean,
Yeah. So the question for me, from my place of practice, how do I not marginalize but take care of that energy? We need to do something different than we did before. What we did before obviously didn't work. All right. Enough for one day. Sorry to bring the energy down, but we all own it. Find a place to be joyful with it.
Some of us are reading a book about the Vietnam War times, and I remember now how divided the country was, how people spat on each other, how we were at a complete impasse because these people are completely crazy. Those people are completely crazy. It was a really bad time in the same way.
It was.
So we've been there before. We survived it, and we're going to survive this.
Yeah.
But, you're right. We have to find a better way of taking care of these things.
Yeah. So hopefully we have the choice not to repeat history. Let's learn from it. All right, enough for today. Thank you, everybody. The next koan's kind of funny, so we'll talk about that next week.